like the low bandwidth that I'm dealing with, but it should be a little bit better.
60 seconds, guys.
Okay. Hopefully.
Thank you, Devin.
Yeah, everybody refresh your page and hopefully it'll be back and it might be a little cleaner, a little more fluid. Hopefully. I can't, fingers crossed. We'll see. Yeah.
You're right, Kenneth. That's how you do it.
This
Just
is how.
ask SIRI for WCPT tune in.
Mm-hmm. Part of me is shocked even at the sort of pitiful racism of Trump, like the kind of low res, grotesque.
Seconds.
Thank you. Racism.
Oh, okay. I'm really curious to hear what he said now. I'm not looking it up intentionally.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Johnny Million, I am it is infrequent that I am shocked by anything that Donald Trump says. And in this particular case, his recent statement that he put out on Trump Sapstunkel, whatever it's called, his flailing and failing social media site, which is in deep financial doo-doo, and it's just a ripoff of Twitter, and it's built on the open source Mastodon architecture, and they got in trouble for not giving it credit initially. All of the above. Like, it's just terrible. It's so bad. In the meantime, though, he has, when he gets sort of in a fit, in a writ of felis jage, he will start truthing like he used to tweet. And for anybody who thought he would, remember the talk of he's going to be more presidential. Once he gets in office, he's going to stop with that stuff. And he'll show you guys. Remember that business? Which never happened. He just got more awful. And
yeah, you don't know why, like, he stayed in the public eye because he just screamed that Obama wasn't born in America.
Right. Yeah. That was, he built an audience on that. That was a PR scheme that paid off with a certain group of people. Now, again, you can't play footsie with Jonestown, and that's what he was doing the entire time. So in talking about, in particular, his grotesque kind of messing around with QAnon and assuming that these folks would be, a resource to be mined, ultimately, you FAFO in those situations because those people will turn on you faster than anyone. The people who love purity tests in any political realm or any religious realm, and God forbid the mixing of the two, if you don't live up to whatever standard that they have presented for you, you're in more danger than the opponent side. They are more suspicious, angry, and disgusted by you than they will ever be of the people that they will call openly courting Satan. And in this particular case, Trump has boiled down. If you look at the recent rallies, the people who are showing up with their finger in the air and the whizzy wagab blah 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 stuff about QAnon, that crowd, it's like if you were making stew and you left the pot on the stove and then it boiled all the water out of it, and all that's left is the remnants at the bottom. And there might be an idiot roommate you've had in your past that might go, let's just pour some water in there and just mix it back up and it'll be stew again. It doesn't work that way. It is always going to be the remnants. It is never going to be soup again. You can tell yourself that all you want, but it's also poisonous to eat in most cases. That's what this is. These people are the remnant.
It's never going to be soup again. That sounds so final and sad.
It is. If you look at these groups of people that are showing up at his rally, it's never going to be soup again, dude. It's bad. And the problem with those folks is to keep them on your side, to keep the red meat you have to throw to these people eventually they're gonna, like any drug, I suppose, it fades. In the early days, you could chuck roadkill at them, and they're just like nom nom nom. Midway through, you gotta, you're going to the store and you're buying, ribeyes and going, we're living high on the hog. By the time you reach, 10 miles from Jonestown, these people are going to want human flesh, and they're they get really hard to please. Have I belabored this analogy too much? Can you tell I've been watching too much the
I'm loving
Dahmer
it.
series? But
Wes Webb just gave away a bunch of memberships, so I've just
oh my
kind of
gosh,
got
thank you.
yeah,
And
like 50 memberships. You're crazy, Wes.
Oh, that's amazing. And also Hal Vickery.
He's also
thank
a
you for the
sweetheart.
super
I
chat.
got to meet him last week in Poison.
Yes, yeah, that's the lovely thing about touring around and stuff. I might have to drag you to some of the other sexy liberal shows, Johnny. I think that's how it's going to have to be at some point. We'll figure it out. But
And you kept sending people over to me, like, that's Johnny over there.
and they're like, "Oh my God, there he is." And did all of them want to touch your head, or just the three that openly said it?
There was no head touching. My ass got pinched once.
All right, okay. Well, that makes sense. And anybody besides me doing that, or I'm just saying. Okay, so nope, just me. I was the only one doing it. All right. So Trump, long story
It's
short,
just you.
bizarrely gross. He posts this thing, and I'll see if I can find like the full text of it. He's mad at McConnell for not ruining the economy. He thinks the key to Republicans winning, and I don't know why you wouldn't follow this if you're a Republican, is to crash the U.S. economy to own the libs. And he's still mad about McConnell not doing this in 2020, and in basically
that falls right into their playbook, though.
Well, no.
Because what they do is they do everything to make it look bad while the Democrats are in office, so they can say we'll come in and make it better, even though government needs to be small enough to drown in a bathtub.
Right, exactly, or fit in a uterus. I agree with you that that's what they say, and that used to be the prevailing mythology. That used to be, they'll play Santa Claus theory. They, while they're in there, they're Scrooge while they're out of office, Santa while they're in, and and anybody, they're acting in a miserly fashion. When look how much these people are spending, this is ridiculous. And then they get in and they do a huge tax cut, and it's not paid for, and I mean it's standard. Again, the Republican mantra is government can't do anything right. Elect me, and I'll prove it. And so but Trump in this case sort of views the U.S. economy in terms of its worth for him as a bargaining chip like he would use in a real estate deal. The problem is in a real estate deal, but for, I suppose, the tenement issues that he and his father were in early in his career, people can move someplace else. There is no second U.S. economy. There is no, there's no alternative at this. If you crash this, it's done. And if you lower our credit rating just because you refuse to recognize that we just came out of COVID, or we're dealing with any myriad of things, when we can absolutely afford it. And our economy, by the way, for all the people who have been like clamoring about the national debt clock, if you'll notice the national debt clock, which every time Democrats getting like, we need to pare down the national debt, you'll hear Republicans and financial people start talking about that will be detrimental to the monetary system because so many people rely on the interest payments of the U.S. government as stable investment. Like believe me, that's why they don't do it when they're in. It's why they never lower the deficit, because the investor class, especially and including large pensions, rely on government bonds and the like. And if we eventually just pay them all off, and they're not there to have, they got to go out.
That's most of what we're paying into with our taxes.
Exactly. They got to invest in genuine risk, and they avoid that. So in this particular case, if you'll notice the national debt clock, which is very famous, and there's one in New York City and it's constantly going up. The GDP clock of the United States is not riding right alongside of it. It's because it has been going up at a faster rate than the debt has at different times, especially when the most clamoring happens. The GDP of the United States has doubled since 2000. The national debt clock has not. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you talk about it in the same ways that most people couldn't pay off their mortgage with 1 year of their salary. Of course, you extrapolate larger costs over time and pay them down and then refinance that debt at different times. Like, this is human adult. If you talk about kitchen table issues, which Republicans always mention, this is one of those kitchen table issues. Okay, nobody sits down at the kitchen table with their family and goes, "We got to pay off the mortgage this year. Do you see how much we owe on this house?" You just go, "No, we just keep making our. It's a 30-year mortgage, honey. We signed on. We know what we were buying." So Trump wants this to be a bargaining chip every time. And he writes, the continuing resolution extends current funding levels until December 16, while also approving $12.4 billion in military and diplomatic spending to help Ukraine in its war against Russia. Listen to that. In its war against Russia. Ukraine is defending itself against Russia. It's not at war with Russia. Russia is at war with Ukraine. It's a very important distinction. This is where, like, people who still say the Ukraine as opposed to Ukraine as a country, because calling it the Ukraine makes it a territory that it does not have, its own controlling interest. Okay, $1 billion for domestic disaster recovery efforts, including Western wildfires. There we go. So Trump will permanently. Where is he? He goes, "Is McConnell approving all of these trillions?" It's like, yes, they're all siding on him, without even the slightest bit of negotiation. No, there's constant negotiation. This is how little he knew about how the government works, because he hates Donald J. Trump, and he knows I'm strongly opposed to them. Who cares? You're not the president anymore, dummy. Or is he doing it because he believes in the fake and highly destructive Green New Deal, which I don't know where that, I don't know, and is willing to take the country down with him? Then he goes, in any event, either reason is unacceptable. He has a death wish, and death wish is written in all caps. He says, must immediately seek help and advice from his China-loving wife, Coco Chow. Elaine Chao is his wife. She served in Trump's cabinet. She resigned after January 6th, on January 7th in protest. Coco Chow. Peekaboo, Peekaboo James with Chow. There he is. This is just this, like, degrading way he talks about women, especially women who have some level of power. Hashtag the best people. But the thing that stands out most of all is that he has a death wish, and death wish is all in caps. There is no way that the people around Trump aren't aware that there are, based on Donald Trump's behavior. There won't be. I'm sorry. There's not going to be an uprising by his people. The idea that some lone wolves in that crowd might do something awful is very high. And now Mitch McConnell, of all people, has to get extra security because Trump is threatening his life, essentially, by saying he has a death wish. That part of it, it's hard to grasp how he thought that was supposed to be read. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. I don't get it. I don't like.
So the chat tech support is telling me to ask you to stop with the moving background. They believe that's eating up.
They think that's the hang up. Okay, hold on one second. Yep. They may be right. I may be crazy. Boink. I don't necessarily think
so. Maybe a lunatic you're looking
but we'll
for.
See. Johnny, there we go. Then I will add, I don't know. We'll just go with black background just to save ourselves the bits. See if it works.
There you go.
They absolutely may be right too. So, and some of them have been trying to get rid of that background forever. I believe we're in a break.
Al Vickery just said you're not in break.
Oh, I thought we are in a break. We should be in a break. Is Chicago not know?
Did someone leave? Commercials are playing.
Yeah, see? Yeah, we're in break.
Thank you,
we're
Devin.
Good. Yeah, he was doing it. We're good. Yeah, so basic black is fine. It is. It's good. Whew.
Oh,
All right. No,
60
normal.
seconds, gents.
Thank you.
it brings out your highlights.
Does it? Makes me look vaguely green.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shocked
Very
me when
nice.
very few things shocked me when he writes them. Yeah, but that one was like, and I'll wait till we see it.
Save it for the air.
Gotta save it. Gotta save it.
Save it.
10 seconds.
Thank you. Coming back.
Welcome back to the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
That's us.
So I have to say, I kind of like while we were talking it out during the break, I kind of figured out what I realized was like the most shocking about, for me anyways, of him writing those words down, of saying Mitch McConnell, like he has a death wish, and putting death wish in all caps.
I don't like that at all.
I think the most shocking part of it is that whoever's around Trump right now has checked out. That there is no one minding the store.
No more checks and balances.
No, there's just grandpa's just rage tweeting, and Ivanka's not calling right now and saying, "Dad, what are you writing? You can't write somebody as a death wish." You know what I mean? Nobody's even bothering to have that conversation anymore, which is in many ways a good sign. It means that they're not expecting anything from him. They've had conversations with him. They know he's not running. They know this is a bluff just to raise money, all that stuff. But the fact that that he's gone so far so fast in this, and it's interestingly enough, sort of like Putin's annexation vote that he had this week. The talking point on the right, and I discussed this on my live stream because there's a lot of people who are hoping this would be bigger than it was. The strikes on the Nord Stream pipeline, which, in my humble opinion, for the record, I suggest everybody go watch "The World Is Not Enough," the Bond film with Pierce Brosnan and Sophie Marceau, and
was this done in there already?
Well, yeah, they put a bomb in one of the cleaning rig ropes that goes through a pipeline and blow it up. And they were they were going to pepper it. They had half of the nuclear material they'd taken from this theft, and to make them think, oh, they used it as a bomb and it's gone now, so that they could use it elsewhere. It was a distraction. But the rigs, that was my first time learning about pigging. Not to be confused with pegging. Pigging is a pig is a pipeline inspection gauge or gadget, depending on who you're talking to. And there are these robots and these these cleaning things that go through the pipeline. They go all the way to the end and come back. They test the pressure along the way. They do all that kind of stuff, because it's not like you can send guys down in it, especially when these pipelines go under the ocean for hundreds of miles. So attaching explosives to one of those things and sending it through the pipeline and blowing it where it is not even complicated. It's a rudimentary act of self-sabotage on a pipeline they no longer are going to use. Nord Stream 2 is never going to be online. Nord Stream 1 is down to a trickle, and the Europeans no longer trust Russia to get their oil and gas. And by the time the Ukrainian attack of the failure of the the attack on Ukraine by Russia is all over and said and done, and the borders are pushed back to where they were before 2014, and Crimea is reclaimed and all that kind of stuff, Europe is going to be getting its gas from Ukraine. It's going to be getting its gas from Kazakhstan. And Moscow is not going to have the ability to throttle either one. So the Nord Stream pipelines, both of them, are unnecessary. And both of them are pressurized and full of gas. Even the Nord Stream 2, which was never opened at the other end. So if to empty it, you would have to vent the gas out of it. In current state, you would have to vent it on the mainland in Russia. So better blow a hole in it in international waters and let it vent out and not care about the environment. It's very Russian. It's not even complicated. Like, this is one of those things, like, you could see one of them going, just do it and get it over with. But Russia's, this was supposed to be the big talking point. This was World War III in right-wing Twitter and on, Laura Ingram's show and on Tucker and all the, the usual suspects on the faux aggressive hyper left.
Mm-hmm.
They were all saying, this is it. This is the U.S. did this. It's for sure we did this. I don't know why we would. Why bother? Because, like I said, it was down to a trickle and it wasn't going anywhere. But they were saying this is going to be World War III. This is what's going to trigger it. The Russians are going to take this as an attack on infrastructure. It's going to trigger Article 5. We're going to be in war within 3 days. And it came and went. Like all the other flailing, half-butted versions of, the Gulf of Tonkin incident that you've seen from Russia. This way, they're going to use chemical weapons on us kind of stuff, and then use chemical weapons themselves, and then go, see? Like, that's the Russian, it's just how they operate.
So they do all the time.
It's not even, it's so hack at this point that no one expects it to actually work out. Nobody expects it to, like, even make the impact in the news that it's supposed to make. So this had passed, and the timing of it was fascinating because they were going to do this, like, domino effect. They lost so badly in the reclamation of Kharkiv by the Ukrainians. And 18 new HIMARS have just shown up in Ukraine. These are the ones that will reclaim Crimea. That's how it's going to work. I mean, I'm just telling you. And the Russians were like, well, we've got to do something to kind of counteract this. We need a domino effect of several wins to feel good about ourselves so that the populace doesn't turn on us and we really show them who's boss. And so they did these gun-at-the-head referendums in Donetsk and Luhansk, walking around, a woman with a clipboard and 2 armed guards, going door to door, getting people to vote, counting ballots with no markings on them in the yes category, in open view of cameras. Like, on Russian social media, you can watch them counting ballots yes that are neither checked yes or no. And then announcing in this big grand ceremony that la-di-da, we have
choose your own adventure.
Yes, right. That all of a sudden, these 2 parts of Ukraine are claimed by Russia. And nobody cared. Nobody bought it. They can say it all they want, but there's not going to be a moment even where they, once the Ukrainian military moves in to either of those areas, are they going to actually be able to say they're attacking Russian land? Nobody's going to buy that. International law isn't going to protect them. It's just the war will go on over those territories, like they said. And the idea that they would use a tactical nuke as a retaliation, as retaliation for actual physical troops moving into the Donetsk region, they're not going to do it because they want that land later. Because with all the talk about NATO expansion and blah, 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 it's about oil and gas and minerals. The deposits and the ability to get them out of the ground in Ukraine are, they have a better chance than taking over Kazakhstan, which they have no chance of doing. So, and the most of the oil that they have in Russia is in, ground that's permafrost 80% of the year. It's classic. And no wonder Trump liked Putin so much. We're going to keep the oil. Remember when Trump said that? And we all were like, the hell we are. That's not what we're not interested in doing that. We don't need to do that. And it's illegal. No. But there's a reason why, Trump said that, because he believed Putin had the ability to do it. And he's like, well, if they can do it, we can do it. No, they can't.
Yeah.
It's that might have been how things worked for centuries. Heck, it might have been even how things worked up into the mid-2000s. But we're moving swiftly beyond that. And the move towards renewables, beyond the climate change aspect of it, beyond the pollution aspect of it, just whether you believe in atmospheric filth, as Trump likes to put it. Beyond all that, there's a natsec aspect, a national security aspect of renewables, which is if you no longer have to rely on oil and gas from awful people all over the world, sucking some sort of substance out of the ground that they were just born on top of. They didn't invent it. They didn't even invent how it's refined at this point or how it's used. We're not, if you'll notice, we are not, in most cases, or anyone in the world is not, in most cases, taking over refineries because of the technological advancements of making unleaded gas. It is simply the resource base. It is just the in the ground resource part of it, and we are moving away from that as a world community, as a society. That's how it's going to go. And oops, we lost Johnny for a second. Hopefully he'll be back. We'll see. We'll take a break if he doesn't. Oh, there he comes. I see him coming back. He might be coming back. We'll see. There he is, his lovely face. Hi, I lost you for a second. Clicked the wrong button, didn't you? It happens. Yeah, I understand. So what I was saying at the time is that we're moving beyond, oil and gas as our primary, especially consumer base for moving around, because it gunks up the air and the water, and it's gross, and it contributes to climate change, but also because of the awful people the world over that control that resource. And the sooner we get away from all of that, the better. And in the case of Russia, they're like, no, you don't understand. We're in the business of that awful person. And so the move on Crimea
that's what we do.
Yeah, the move on Crimea, back in 2014, more so than, it's almost like the Donetsk and Luhansk areas were like head around this, because it was the claiming of Crimea allowed them to control the territorial waters outside of Crimea, which included new gas deposits that the international community in Ukraine had found. And one of the reasons, by the way, why Yanukovych, who was a Putin puppet, was talking to the EU about broadening. He was trying to go the way of Belarus, which is kind of slowly but surely detach yourself. And Putin jerked the leash. He's tried to jerk the leash on Kazakhstan, and it's not happening. And so what they're doing in Kazakhstan is simply throttling the pipelines going through there. If you want to look at anything as a precursor to the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline, if it's even that, because we can't rule out ineptitude and incompetence and lack of repair parts in anything that's happening in Russia. As much as we joke about dudes flicking cigarettes in ammo dumps, it's absolutely a possibility. But the biggest precursor we have to what happened to Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 this week is the throttling of gas supplies to Europe through Kazakhstan by the Russians, by Putin, by Gazprom itself doing, we got to do repairs, and then keeping those pipelines offline on purpose. And why? Because the Europeans have filled up their gas reserves, their storage, to 88%, which is enough to get them through the winter. And so the winter is coming storyline, and we're going to use this, is not going to work. Nor is the starvation factor, because the international community, along with Turkey, which is supposed to be Russia's friend, is now helping grain exports leave Ukraine. The issue will be next year as far as crops, not this year. And that failed as well. So Russia can't put a gun to the head of the starving people on the earth. They can't put a gun to the head of the Europeans in terms of their winter gas needs. So they're just doing it to the heads of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. I don't know why I'm reversing those today. It sounds like a comedy duo. But they're putting a gun to their head and saying, vote to be part of our, of Russia or die. And then as soon as you vote, by the way, then we'll let you leave. Then you can drive back to Russia and wait this out because the bombs are coming. But not until then. And if you're Ukrainian, until we do you in on our way out of town. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Let's do it. Hey, Hal, Chelsea Leonard in the chat is asking question. What does annexation mean?
Well, it's a very nice term for stealing. It means that they take over a part of another country, and it's different than, say, setting up a green zone in Baghdad, where we run it for a little while and we have a base there and we coordinate with the government, but we don't claim it's our land. We operate. It's like like we're going to use embassy rules around this for the time being, but ultimately our goal is not to say we own this little chunk of Iraq forever. That would be annexing it, right? We have a deal with the government. We interact with them. This is salami slicing a piece of a country off violently most of the time, or through shoving people in the other way which is how they tried to do it over. It's how they got the Turks out of Crimea. The USSR drove them out of Crimea. Thank you. And then claimed it as their own. So that before Ukraine was, before the Russians tried to annex Ukraine, Ukraine was part of what is effectively annexed territory by the USSR. Just a mix of people. So, but effectively, annexing it is saying we took it by force or by overwhelming, sending Republican and then we vote and say it's ours.
What you're doing.
Because we're coming back to the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I have to say that the fascinating part of this, the current state of world affairs, is if you thought of three leaders that were the most disliked over the last 6 years.
How many gallons is that?
Liters.
Sorry.
I'm an American. I don't speak metric. The three biggest ones, besides your kind of tin pot dictator dudes, the Erdogans of the world, the MBSs, and aligning with what happened to Jamal Khashoggi and the like, were basically Trump, Xi, and Putin. And all three of them spent a good portion of the last couple of years blowing smoke up each other's butts like they were a circular version of human centipede. I don't know where the cigarette works its way into that, but as an analogy, it works. And Trump has even recently been talking about how you couldn't, I don't know where this comes from, you couldn't find an actor in Hollywood to portray Xi Jinping because he's too sharp. Like actors can't, like dumb actors can't play smart people in the first place. But the idea that he's even that smart. Xi Jinping is mocked regularly on social media within China, and they change the way they do it with great regularity. For essentially, compared to other leaders like Deng Xiaoping, as being an illiterate. The CCP had to respond to all this kind of whisper around all of China that he's not that smart and he's not well read by putting out a list of books and having influencers go on social media and do this like reading with Xi Jinping thing where they're like, I'm reading the same book he's reading, and it's so smart. Like it's so ham-handed and hilarious and didn't work at all. Nobody bought it. It became openly mocked. So the same thing with Vladimir Putin. Trump has often said this guy is at the top of his game and he's sharp as a tack, and Biden doesn't even know how to handle this guy. He's so smart. And yet, what have we seen? At every turn, that not only has Vladimir Putin made ego choices on almost every front, where it's really about his showing in the world or some idea about his, standing in history. He's making old-fashioned, I want a brass statue decisions, which is the kind of thing that happens when leaders, especially dictators, struggle with their mortality. What are they going to name a ship after me? Which is, they name a ship after a lot of people. Or am I going to get a statue in Red Square? And I want the statue in Red Square. Well, what's that going to take? Big, bold moves, whether they work or not. And it's a Hail Mary. I won't be around to see the consequences anyways. And in this particular case, that's what this is. It's the same thing in some ways that Xi Jinping is doing with Taiwan, the clamoring about Taiwan. Which, if you'll notice, Nancy Pelosi's visit was supposed to start World War III. And then the congressional delegation that followed up was supposed to start World War III. And then somebody bombing the Nord Stream pipeline is supposed to start World War III. And we're like, as a Gen Xer, and you know this, Johnny, the world has been ending our entire lives. And it's becoming, it is getting its own
lives.
It's getting its own hashtagging right now. It is literally, the calls about World War III are getting so overdone right now because every twist and turn in this, every material change around Ukraine, or the biggest fear if I was Vladimir Putin is that you push the button and they blow up in the cylinder because somebody sold parts out of them, rocket parts to other countries. The second worst is that in 1991 or 1992, the U.S., knowing that the USSR had fallen but didn't quite trust Russia yet, sent in teams to secure the nukes and work with the Russians for a long time, and basically just planted gear, mechanical possibility. And even if we wouldn't think it up, Putin's thinking it, because that's what he would do. And he's got no trust in his military command. Do it. This is how you do it. This is what tough guys do. This is the way, you can't do better. He's sharp as a tack. You're up against these guys and they're just, they're amazing. They think so quick and they know all these details. Well, now that we know how idiotic the three lines policy it was for China, how a lot of the wolf warrior blather around Taiwan and their badgering of the U.S. and other countries, it was absurd on its face. Now that we know the ineptitude of the Russian, not only the military strategy and capability, but their political strategy around this calling up of soldiers and going, we're going to bring every able-bodied man and reservist, and they're finding like 65-year-old guys with diabetes. And rows and rows and rows of men in their 50s and 60s. Not like, oh, oops, this went awry. It's not it's not a bug, it's a feature. They're using as cannon fodder people that are beyond their reproductive capacity because they're in a mess of their own making. And yet, Donald Trump was telling us the whole time, these two guys are tougher than the United States. They're smarter than us. And the only thing you can come away with, if you really give it any thought, is that this is how a sucker thinks. That and he fell for it. Trump got suckered because somebody told him it would be easy money and that everybody would back him. And then when it wasn't the case, when it wasn't easy, he didn't have the skills to actually take a tough situation and make it better, without some sort of bailout from nefarious forces in his life and in his family. So at some point, people have to recognize that Trump talking up Xi Jinping and talking up Vladimir Putin is the guy who just lost his money playing 3-card money on the train and is like, that guy's really smart. That guy on the train is really, really smart. I don't know. He's really good. He's really good. No. Maybe you're just a sucker. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL SPARKS radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Mhm.
All right, I'm gonna run to the potty, and
I
everybody
don't need to
says that the stream is struggling.
Yeah, need to know. I know it's because I have to do it on my phone. I apologize, everybody. Although it's a lot of drop frames. I'm gonna try another try at something. Hold on one second. So I'll be. When
Right,
you
I'm
go,
gonna
I'll
mute the
fix it.
mic.
Good idea.